This is a bad red man. Do we agree on that, Tarnished? Okay, good. The job of a bad red man is to invade your world and bestow upon you nothing but misery, pain, and grief while you're just trying to happily enjoy your journey through the lands between.
Here's Johnny!
Then the time comes when one of these evil demons pops into your world, ready to chew ass and kick bubblegum. Your heart beats racing, your knees are weak, your palms are sweaty, and there's vomit on your sweater already. When out of the blue,
Get it?
the hero you don't deserve but most definitely need shows up ready to serve and protect those in distress, only to be probably executed merely seconds after showing up. Blue Hunters are co-op gamers that can be summoned into your world using the White Cipher Ring. Their main objective is to help you banish that pesky, evil red man that decided to step into your world uninvited. If you have played the game with a friend or summoned random Tarnished, you may have experienced being invaded at least once, and during said invasion, you might have also encountered a blue phantom who came to your aid. However, if you have played the game alone, that is without summoning anyone, you may have noticed that you never got invaded, rendering the need for Blue Hunters unnecessary. This is because, in Elden Ring, invasions only occur if you actively choose to be invaded. Therefore, if invasions are consensual, the question arises, what even is the actual purpose of Blue Hunters? Today, we will delve into the history of blue summons throughout the Souls franchise and explore why they were terribly implemented in Elden Ring. The origins of Blue Hunters, as they are known today, can be traced back to Dark Souls 2. In this game, players were constantly exposed to invasions without any restrictions. It didn't matter if you were human, hollow, or if the area boss was defeated. If someone was using a red-eye orb and you were there, you were going to get invaded. It was pretty unforgiving, to be honest. However, it was commonly known that not everyone fancied a good old PvP encounter, so FromSoft introduced a special covenant, which is a pact that is voluntarily joined by players who agree to abide by special rules or behaviour, called the Way of the Blue, also referred to as the Covenant of the Meek. As a member of this covenant, players received a special ring called Blue Seal. Players wearing the ring as members of the covenant whenever they were invaded, a player from the Blue Sentinels covenant would be summoned into their world to assist them in battle against the evil red man who dared to interrupt their gaming session. It was a fun way to give struggling players a hand against the unrelenting waves of constant invaders they were most likely to receive. Dark Souls 2 was a pretty unforgiving game, which will be discussed in another video. But what's important now is that this was the first time Blue Phantoms were tasked with helping hosts in need. As a side note, Blue Sentinels, which were the ones summoned when a host needed help, could also use a special item called Cracked Blue-Eye Orb to invade sinners, which were mostly invaders. Nice little feature if you ask me. In Dark Souls 3, we have a very similar concept going on, with the difference being that instead of one covenant helping the Way of the Blue members, we had two covenants, Blue Sentinels and Blades of the Dark Moon. Unlike Dark Souls 2 though, the invasion system was much more similar to Dark Souls 1. Invasions were reserved only for when you were in Embered form, which would be the Dark Souls 3 equivalent of human form, and for when the area boss was still alive. There were more conditions to be met for an invasion to properly take place. In Dark Souls 2, if you wanted to not be invaded, well, tough luck, friend. I guess you're gonna have to play offline. But in Dark Souls 3, you could just not be embered. Sure, you would miss on the 30% health bonus that Embered form provided, but it was still a fair trade-off for turning off invasions. However, you could still argue, I guess, that some people wanted the health bonus at all times, and Blue Phantoms were there to ensure that those people had some help against invaders, since they were still arguably being forced to PvP alone and against their will. A concept that, sadly, would not live to see the light of day again. It is important to remark once again that the whole purpose of Blue Summons up to now was to help those in need who had to engage in PvP with an invader against their will and by themselves, kinda calling on your bigger brother to help you deal with the school bully. However, this purpose was severely altered for the worse. In Elden Ring, much like in old Souls titles, concepts and mechanics from the old games are brought back, but in a very incompetent way. First of all, it's important to explain why being invaded in Elden Ring is entirely up to the player's choice. You see, in old Souls titles, there was usually a catch to prevent invasions. Dark Souls 2 was, of course, the exception, but in Dark Souls 1 and 3, if you did not want to get invaded, you just had to stay in hollow and non-embered form respectively. You would miss out on tiny bonuses here and there, but the premise was the same. Don't want to get invaded? Then reject those bonuses, big boy. In Elden Ring, though, these downsides do not exist. You're not sacrificing anything to not get invaded. You simply don't get invaded by default. However, if you do want to get invaded, you need to use a special item called Taunter's Tongue. This item has solely one purpose: to allow invaders to enter your world. And since this is the only way to allow an invader into your world while playing solo, this means that the summoned blue hunter is not really protecting you. You invited the invader, so you want to PvP. What the blue hunter is actually doing is helping you gank the invader. What is a gank, you ask? When two or more gamers purposely gang up against an individual player in order to beat him with a huge advantage on their side. A regular PvE player has no incentive to use Taunter's Tongue.
Know your place, trash.
But a dedicated ganker surely does, so the item is flawed by default. And yes, Taunter's Tongue does allow for a second invasion slot, but you can deactivate it mid-invasion. So you can just wait for that blue, deactivate Taunter's Tongue, and let the ganking commence. And I can already hear some of you screeching in the background.
Objection!
But Ranni, people who co-op can also get invaded, and it's against their will. So a blue hunter does have a purpose there. Hold it! Well, guess what, you nerd? A host who is co-oping already has help. And that help can be 10 times better than a blue summon, because a yellow summon has the capability of being password summoned, so they could also be over-leveled. Not to mention that the host can also summon 2 co-op phantoms, leaving the hunters blue-balled in their world, waiting to do something. If there are no perceivable disadvantages for disabling invasions, and the people that get invaded either want to get invaded or already have help, what even is the point of blue hunters? They don't protect those in need anymore. They don't hunt the guilty anymore. So is their sole purpose merely being a ganking tool? Yes. In my opinion, that is bad design. Blue hunters are not unique or honorable anymore. They're usually scared, unaware PvE players that either die to the invader super fast or spam magic projectiles while the host and his buddy do the rest of the dirty work, providing a very unsatisfying experience for both parties. And sometimes they even spawn right after the battle ended, which tends to happen a lot. You know what would help solve this issue? Bringing covenants back. Also maybe a 6-player limit and solo host invasion, so blue hunters can return to be the noble knights, protectors of the meek that they once were. But until then, I suppose that we can rely on honourable blue hunters, those who refuse to be used as ganking tools and discarded like a tissue. So keep being honourable, Tarnished. Don't be the little bitch of greasy, evil hosts. Also, feel free to leave a like, a comment, and share if you enjoyed the video. And as always, thanks for watching.